Today on the show, we learn the importance of weaponizing your thinking. How's it going, everybody? I love that terminology, and that really comes from our guest on the show today, Cory Huddleston. With his company, Lure Studios, he and his partner are just doing major things in the world of digital marketing and, you know, I hate to just say brand strategy and stuff because people, that conjures up, you know, oh, they make some logos, right? And it's so much bigger than that. But we get into that and so much more in this episode. It's a fantastic episode. But, you know, we talk about weaponizing your thinking like that. And I just love that, you know, to really treat it like an arsenal, right? Like load up on all the good stuff so you can go out and really accomplish your mission in life, right? But that's another thing we get into a bunch in the show. It's jam-packed. We have a little bit of a winding road, but he really gets into the key things to building your brand. But this episode is fantastic, so let's jump in. How's it going, man?
It's going great, man. Thanks for having me on the show, dude.
Cory, welcome. Got this guy in the car. It finally happened.
Finally happened, man.
Awesome. So glad you're here. Cory, tell everybody who the heck you are and your specialty in life right now today.
Sure. Yep. So Cory Huddleston, owner of Lure Studios, and we're a digital marketing agency here in Grapevine, Texas, and we focus primarily on strategy from the onset, and it served us well. We are working with some really interesting brands right now, and just loving life. And we've kind of, I don't want to say stumbled upon, you know, kind of the secrets of, you know, business and branding and a lot of those things. And so we use those to primarily go after people who have the opportunity to influence at a mass scale. Because, you know, you kind of look at the culture and where that's at and everything, you know, and it's kind of, yeah. What are you going to do about it? Sit around and gripe about it? Or are you going to get in there and just dig in and start taking voices that we believe need to be raised, that, you know, literally have the capacity to change the world, and get behind them and use our gifts to be able to do that? So that's what we're all about at Lure Studios. Man, there's a lot to dig into there. I want to dig into, and certainly on some of the how, you know, and who some of those brands and those companies are. But taking back just a little bit on what got you to this journey to even into the marketing world at all, and all of that. So I've always had kind of a knack for marketing since I was a kid. I would like sit around and draw, and I was drawing logos, you know, and I was the kid that was always, you know, there were a few kids in my class whose parents were business owners. And I remember thinking of those guys, like their parents or whatever, as rock stars. You know, in my mind, they were equivalent of what most people would feel like if they ran into like Tom Cruise or something. You know, it was like, to me, I was like, oh, you know, this, you know, I was always infatuated with that, you know. And as I got older, you know, I didn't have a lot of direction, so kind of my life went down a lot of different paths. But later on, you know, I was always, when I was about 22, I believe, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it kind of reignited everything. I was working at a warehouse in Fort Worth at the time, and, you know, 5 at night till 5 in the morning. It was just a hard existence, you know, 6 to 7 days a week. And I ran into a guy one night in a bar, and he was like, man, you need to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because we talk about business. And I was always trying to find successful people, but not knowing where to find those guys sometimes. Interesting. So, you know. So there was still that pull. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and that's, you know, I'm such a huge proponent now of just surrounding yourself with people that are where you want to be and that are desiring to be where you want to be. And then also looking backwards to bring others where you've come from, right? So it's just the nature of everything that, you know, I think we need to focus on as leaders. But anyway, we got into the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it had to have been like the first book I read from cover to cover since Green Eggs and Ham or something as a kid, you know. I mean, I wasn't a big avid reader, but that book, I flew through it and I reread it, and I became like fanboy like right out of the gate for Robert Kiyosaki, you know, and started going to every seminar I possibly could and just fell in love with business. So eventually that took me to working for a promotional products industry for a buddy of mine. I had tried to launch a company and it failed miserably, and my wife was like, you got to get a job, dude, you know. So, and I think we've all probably been there at one point, you know. And I realized my biggest fallback at that time was sales. And because I was just scared, you know, frankly, you know, and then so I went, go ahead.
But like what you fell back on, or like that you were, or your downfall? Like what was?
Oh, it was my downfall. Yeah. So
gotcha.
like starting companies is one thing, and there's all of these, you know, and it's interesting to see it now because of, obviously I've been through a lot more experience as a business owner and all those types of things. But when you meet people who talk about business rather than doing it, and you know, it's obviously a fear issue, you know, always. And same thing with sales. We've always been brought up with the idea that salesmen are sharks, or they're out to get you, or there's scumbags or whatever, you know.
And then even if it's not, even when there's people that don't have that feeling about them, what often happens is, it's those people though. They have this special skill. They have that gift to go and do it.
That's a bunch of crap. It really is all about execution, like strategies, right? It comes back down to where are you allotting your time, you know? Right. And it like that's whenever that happened, I went to go work 100% commission for my buddy because I knew I had to work on sales. So I threw myself into the ocean, and it sucked like for years. I mean, I was doing everything I could to try to learn, and I was like, that's the only way I'm going to do it, you know?
Yeah, it's like learning a language. Just like move to that country and just jump into it.
I mean, that was it. Yeah, it was just jump in and having to unlearn. Like the older you get, you know, it gets harder, right? Because you have already kind of set yourself into this mindset that, you know, a job is the place where you're going to get your paycheck, and that your paycheck is all you need. And like somehow we're better off because we just have that security, but it's really not security at all. It's just an illusion, right? And so when we start to weaponize the way we think,
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, and what our capabilities are, and like a soldier or anyone is always in training, right?
Right.
And because they know that they can't rely on you, like everybody else that's here is going to protect me. Like in the grand scheme of things, I may be in a trench somewhere where I have to whip out my knife and freaking stab a dude to death. You know, it's like this is the way that it is. You know, so hopefully that never happens. But you've got to be as prepared as possible for those things. You know,
right?
And then you get to the elite forces and stuff like that, and these guys are becoming experts at their chosen field, right? They're the best of the best, you know. So I want to be that guy, you know. And it took me a long time to even believe that I could, right? My mindset's such a huge part of all of this.
So how did you approach that? Did you get that kind of training and everything from your buddy at the place, or was it?
No. Well, no. So that was like you get thrown into it, and he started me out with like a meager $1,000 a month, you know, and that was what was the appealing part, unfortunately. And I'm sad to admit that, right? But it's like $1,000 a month at that time was like, you know, like it saved my butt a little bit, and then. You know, and I still remember my first day of like trying to launch this other company, you know, and it was an awesome idea. And even though I look back to it, I'm like, man, this is such a cool thing. But, you know, you can only go after so many things at one time, right?
Yeah.
But I remember my first day of driving out to the office, and I was on my way out to Dallas off of 635, and all I saw in my mind, I'm very visual, was this sea of black and gray luxury cars and all these zombies driving them, you know, going to their place, you know, the place that they had to sell out to go work for, you know. And I know that that's not right, but at the time that was what I saw, you know.
Right, because that was was the story you had for yourself. Because
totally,
Oh man, I can totally sympathize with that feeling, and I think we've all been there in some mode, whether it's having to end a company, having to go for a full-time job, or just not on that path, and that, especially when you've got that mark of where you want to be. It's one thing if you're just floating around like, man, I didn't really want this. You know, that's one thing. But when you've gone after something and you know what you want, that's a tough thing.
Well, and that's the other side of all of this, right? So we could go in. I mean, actually, this whole thing could be on mindset. I mean, like just from that, because I've realized that is the key. You know, all the way around. There's all this execution stuff you've got to be able to do. But that's all learnable. Yep. If you're not in the mind space to even get there in the first place, it's done, man. You know, I mean, like,
absolutely.
Like it's the same reason that somebody can win the lottery, right, and have millions and millions, and maybe tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of dollars, and be broke within 5 years,
right? Completely
broke. It's because their mindset was a certain way, you know. And I've had to deal with this even as we're growing lure. Right now we're growing double every month.
Wow.
You know, and it's been. a stretch, right? It's this, you know, and I'm trying to maintain like composure and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, crap, it actually gets more stressful, right? And I hate to say that because it makes it sound weak, but at the same time, you know, it's just, that's an honest truth, right?
Well, it's interesting that you go there, like, and I know it's sort of just like a throwaway comment. So, but there's a part of you that feels like, oh, that's weak to feel like that success is stressful, but it's not. You know, I mean, that's not a
everybody deals with it, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things. But as a leader, you don't want to, you tend not to want to show weakness. And that may be just, you know, how I think, again, a story, right?
Well, yeah, and it is, but it's also equating stress with weakness, whereas...
that's true, dude.
I mean, this stress...
And that probably is a story. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's... Man, you're supposed to be stressed. You know. Yeah. What do they say? You don't. You know, as you gain success, your problems don't go away. They just get bigger. Like they get different in their change. Yeah. You know.
And you become more. You trust your gut more. You learn to trust your gut more. And so the problems, while they get bigger and they get bigger, your ability to rely on how your gut, you know, and to do those things becomes actually the most important thing. And that's why I'm saying anybody who's ever been broke would make the best entrepreneur if they could just switch the way they think about entirely everything, right?
What makes you say that? I've got my own reason. What makes you say that?
Totally. Okay, so first of all, I tell everyone, like, when you want to be successful, the first thing that you have to do is come to a place in your life where everything that you know could be a freaking lie, you know? Like, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the idea that, you know, everything your mom told you and everything that your family believed for generations and everything, all this could be a complete mirage. You know?
Because obviously something's a lie because you're not where you're supposed to be, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're the common denominator, right? Right. I mean, in all of these things, and there's people all around us becoming millionaires and billionaires and whatever else every single day. You know, so it's not that. And to your point earlier, you said that. Believing that it's just not for me. Dude, we've all got those feelings of inadequacy in any capacity, you know? I mean, I've met some of the healthiest, what you think are the healthiest people in the world that still have that in some capacity because we're human, and that's the experience we share. But, and that's why it's important to surround yourselves with guys like Jason, you know, and other people, you know, that are like going to challenge you you know, because I was just literally having this conversation 30 minutes ago with my designer, you know, it was like, he's like, dude, I was having this conversation, right? So he's like, dude, I've felt like that out of my element since I've been here. And he's been here probably a couple months. And I'm like, that's because, dude, I love you. And I see the greatness in you. And I'm going to push you like you've never been pushed before because I want it to come out. We want the best of, you know, our people to come out. And and literally that's how I view my clients now too, by the way. I mean, so when you're broke, you can't really serve anybody well. You know, that's the unfortunate side of that, you know, because you're more worried about, dude, how am I going to pay my house payment or how I'm doing all these things. So you're actually doing the world a disservice by remaining broke. You know?
Oh, absolutely. And I love that mindset. That was a big thing and I've never been one of those people who I don't know, had any negative viewpoint on wealth or wealthy people or stuff like that at all. But even still, that it's such great mindset and logic to sort of impart to others when necessary that if you want to do good in this world, it isn't about giving up everything and going and being broke on the side of the road. Like, how many more lives are you going to help by being successful and
dude, that's why that whole like the 501c3 move like thing and everybody wants to be a nonprofit is laughable, dude. I mean, like, to me, and I'm a Christian, right? Like, I believe that churches do more good on this planet than anybody wants to give it credit for, and they have, like, for the direction of how this company or the country has gone. But I also think that there's this huge issue with how people believe, you know, they think like this, that in the script, that people actually believe that the Bible says that money is the root of all evil.
Right.
It does not say that, right? Well, money is the love of money is the root of all evil. But even with that, dude, it's like, and not to say that we should have everybody out there just trying to become wealthy and all that kind of stuff, just for the sake of being wealthy either. But
and that's the whole point. It isn't the act of, I mean, it's just like alcohol or anything else. Like, it's just going to amplify who you are already. So if you're an awesome, wonderful person and you have heaps of money, you're amplifying that. It's going, you know.
Well, I think most people too are driven by time, right? So it becomes this, they're pressured because they feel like they're running out of time. What's interesting is like they won't make a move. And then 5 years later, they're like, dang, if I'd only made a move 5 years ago, you know, I mean, and 5 years goes by like that, you know, I mean, depending on how young your audience is or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, like, the older you get, you realize that, you know? So when you know you're in this for the long game, it becomes much easier to become the person that you know you need to be to accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Oh, absolutely. Right? And so go back, finish up that analogy, though, for us in terms of, like, why, you know, the people who've been broke at some point are going to make that best entrepreneur.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So part of it was letting go of or accepting the fact that everything you know could be wrong, it could be a lie. What's the other aspect of that?
Yeah, the other aspect of that is, like, I've been there, right? You learn how to do a lot with a little. I mean, you're freaking resourceful as all get out, right? You know how to get by. And also the things that entrepreneurship will eventually bring, which is, you know, there's days where you're like, how am I going to make it tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Like,
right.
Oh God, I'm about to lose my house. You know, like, what do I do? You know, like all this. And when you come to that point in entrepreneurship where you will do anything to succeed outside of going and robbing a bank, but not, you know, like you haven't thought about it probably, you know, whatever else. But it's like you're weighing all the options and you're doing like, I will do anything it takes other than go get a job. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Not to say there's anything wrong with having a job, but you need to know what you're made of, because I'm a horrible entrepreneur. Like every time I've worked for someone.
You mean employee?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Horrible employee. Yeah. Every time I've worked for someone, I end up running off their people to go start their own businesses. You know, it's like, I'm just like, I don't have any business. Like, I'm actually hurting the people that gave me an opportunity. You know? So I just know my place now, you know?
Right. And that's a big part of it, to have that, again, back to mindset and everything. So I just think, again, I could go down, you and I could, and we spent hours talking about this stuff before.
Yeah.
Because,
I love hanging out with you, dude.
Oh, likewise, man, because it does just, this stuff resonates so well, and I think it resonates well with my audience, and I definitely, you know, I love touching on this for the show, but I want to make sure we tell your story through this as well. So what's gotten you to Lure? And so after the promotions company, how did that play out, and what was next?
Well, it was actually interesting because it was like a big part of mindset again, but you go through that time where you're there, and I was like, I was actually sucking at sales, you know, but I think a lot of it was just like, I started realizing how much of a commodity type of business that was.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't like it, you know, and not only that, but I always had this desire to serve the businesses in a much greater capacity. And I didn't really see that happening with branded products. Now, in some instances there were good case studies and all that, but I don't think the overall aspect of what that brings to the table is going to make or break a company, you know? And so I wanted to be the guy with the key, you know what I'm saying? And not because I wanted all the attention on me, but like, dude, if you're going to do something, then do it. Like, cut everything off else, you know?
And I think that comes with people with great work ethics.
Yeah.
Because you realize that I am going to give 1,000% to I'm going to give. My wife would be angry. Yes, it's 100%. You can't give more than 100%. I got it. You're going to give 100% to what you're doing and just go full force.
Totally.
But then if you can't sometimes because it's the job.
Don't overcommit either. You know?
Right. Yeah. Or you see that it's all being misused or thrown away or not being used in the best way. Man, those are the folks that have that feeling that spark that need to go and take control and have the key to the office, like you say.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, while I was there, I'm an extremely loyal guy, you know, and I expect loyalty too in return, right? But where I was at, I kept telling the dude, I was like, dude, we need to be doing more from a digital marketing perspective. Back then, that was kind of like, I mean, websites had been around, but it was, you know, I don't even know there were a ton of agencies at that point. It was still just kind of becoming this thing, right?
Right, on the digital marketing side, yeah.
And so Lure started out of that because I kept talking to him, and he was like, man, that's just not our lane, whatever, and this and that. And I was like, okay, cool. So I started going and researching it on my own, and I had no money at the time, so I was watching all these free YouTube videos and all the other stuff along the way. And one of the things, I had a buddy of mine I had bought a small prosumer camera. It was the T3i from Canon, right? And I was learning how to shoot videos on my own through that whole thing, you know. Nice. And I was like, this is going to be the future of video, you know. And you obviously took that to heart as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I did not know anything about using it, so I started going and I'd call up photographers like, how do I use this camera? You know, like bam, 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 and I'd go sit down with them, buy them coffee, and like go through. And I was trying to do anything I could to do it. And then I went out and I started doing like free projects for people to just make videos here and there, and it was like started learning the ins and outs, and I started watching more of the film riots and stuff like that, you know, like on YouTube, you know.
Yeah.
And I was seeing this opportunity like kind of starting to happen. Well, a buddy of mine at that time, he was working for this company where they were doing live streaming services, and I was like, man, this is something I've been wanting for years, you know. Was the opportunity to be able to live stream video. So this was just kind of on the forefront, and they were kind of like this network for that, right?
Okay.
And so I have always been really good at building relationships. So I have tons and tons of relationships with all kinds of people in the industry.
And that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
The guy running for office in Grapevine.
Yeah.
If you need to know anybody in Grapevine and beyond, but definitely in Grapevine, he knows them.
Well,
already.
I'm fascinated by people and smart people, particularly, you know, like fascinated by it. I could sit there, like, that's why I love hanging out with you, dude, because we can bounce off of these things and you have your own like perspective of life. It's not canned or not like forced to you from some news agency or whatever else. Right. Like, you know, people like that are awesome, you know? So anyway, but going back to, what was I talking about actually? I forgot.
So, the live streaming service.
Oh, the live streaming. Okay. Yeah. So he had told me what it was about, and I was like, oh my God, dude, this is revolutionary. So I went out and I had all these relationships with these business people and all these different things in this ministry I'm a part of called Wingmen. And Chad Hennings, he was a 3-time Super Bowl champion, all this kind of stuff. And I'd been going there for so long and volunteering and all this, and I was like, dude, we need this. Like, and I set him up like 5 meetings, and I was like, I don't want anything in return. I just want to know everything about what you do, right? And I set up all these meetings, and I was sitting there and I just listened to the two parties talk, and I was like, because I knew I was on the forefront of understanding what live streaming was, you know, and I was like, I just wanted to know.
About what year is this?
This was, I don't remember what year. It was about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, right? So, like for consumer brands and stuff like that, this was like a big deal, you know?
Oh, yeah,
so,
for sure.
Anyway, so I set up all these meetings, and some of them they went through and all this stuff, but what was happening is I was gaining this new awareness of what was actually happening here, and it made me even more exhilarated to go after the video market and start doing that. And so with Wingman, we sat down, and I didn't have any money, remember what I was saying there. So, and I had already been on the fence about Lure Studios, and I had set up all this stuff, and I had been talking with some of our clients like that I had from
the promotional products. Okay.
And I was still doing that, but I was kind of like tiptoeing and all this. Yeah. It was really just an execution.
So you already had you had the idea of like, okay, this is where I need to go with digital marketing. You already come up with the name and everything.
Well, that was what I was. I had taught myself how to do logo design and stuff, like on Illustrator, over go to my PC from the other. Like I would use my computer at home and log into the work computer and use the Illustrator, and then I'd watch YouTube video and then use that. It was so slow, dude, but I learned how to use Illustrator. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, so
that's awesome.
When you want something, you'll do anything to get it, right? So same thing happened with video, right? So then for the Wingman thing, and I hate admitting this on camera, but it's like, so basically I got those guys connected, and I was like, we need a show, you know? It was like we need to be broadcasting or doing all these things. And we did it live for a while. So I got them to commit to doing that and got them to buy a camera and all this stuff. So now I was in business, dude. I had a camera.
Oh, that's awesome.
I basically was using other people's assets to be able to build it out in my relationships, you know? And that was how Lure Studios was born, dude.
That's beautiful. That's awesome.
You know, on those. And so we started out doing a lot of video production and graphic design. And then I realized like just making videos for people wasn't actually going to cut it, you know?
Right.
And I had some really cool deals. I did a video for Ken Paxton. He ran for Texas Attorney General and had, you know, different things like that. And then I'd give them the outcome, and I was kind of like, they were good because I had a natural ability, but like I was nowhere near the professional that we are today, you know? Mm-hmm. Now I don't even hardly do video myself. I usually, like Chris, you met him in my office. Yep. He's, you know, that's his thing. He's like, and then I have other people we use too. So,
but yeah, it's one of those things, and it sounds like you realized early on with that video's a piece of this and a really big, strong piece.
Oh, huge.
But it's a very,
if you're not doing video now with your company, you're missing out. Like, that's just
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. But it is piece, and certainly as a company offering that, I know I found for myself, it's another one of those things, like you were saying with the promotional products, it's one of those commodity, just commodity, these days. It's such a...
That's a whole show right there, bro. So okay, so it is, but it isn't, right? So,
right, positioned the right way.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. And then that's the other, like, everybody needs it, and a lot of people don't know how. So if we don't know how to articulate what it is that we do and why it matters. And this is why, like, so as I got more into video and the design side of things, I started realizing, like, there's so much more to this that I'm missing, Yeah. I'm not a marketing agency yet. I'm a video guy doing stuff barely on the side, you know what I'm saying? And, like, it was enough.
There's a bigger picture to all of this.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like, how do we get these videos in front of people,
Exactly.
And then I became, like, literally obsessed with this, because I was like, I really wanted to serve our clients, And that was the big deal of it all, And sometimes the video is just there for the purposes of being there. And then other times it's not. I don't think there's ever a reason we should really not try to get it in front of as many people as possible.
Right. Have a call to action involved in it. Have it in front of, as
and then how are you, are you getting traffic to this video? And how are you doing that? I mean, there's so many things that you need to be able to do in order to make this thing super effective. But the call to action thing, just that alone, most people don't even do.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things that's missed.
Yeah. And having a legitimate call to action that people actually care about,
Oh, yeah. So Lure is born.
Yeah.
With all of this through drive, hustle, relationships.
Yep. Totally. Man.
And so it comes to life. And then what was the vision for it in the early days? Was it simply like, hey, I just know what I need to be offering, so let me jump out there and do that? Or was there a vision for it?
So my vision has always been, like, and I teach this to my kids and everything, but, like, everything we touch is going to be better off because we've touched it. And this is ingrained in our employees. This is ingrained in my kids. I mean, everything, right?
Awesome.
So if we're not giving it the best and actually transforming something and making it amazing by the end the time that we're done with it, then we're not doing our job right, you know? And then what I told you earlier about taking the voices that otherwise are falling into the shadows that have the ability, we're letting the news and everybody else kind of run the narrative, right?
Right.
And I have the ability, and the more I weaponize myself as a marketer, I have the ability to literally stop that and change this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And put things in the forefront that have the capacity to make people's lives better,
right?
More enriching. I mean, all of these things. And so I see myself and our company as a whole and all of these, and I was telling our designer, I was like, dude, Lure is not a company, it's the people, right? I mean, like, the collectively, like, dude, your ability to bring the best of the best to the table and me to draw that out of you, and the same with Chris and the same with Mike and the same with Lisa and all these people that are a part of our company. And then we meld with our clients and make them better at being able to grow their businesses. Because my background as an entrepreneur and my business partner, his background, he's raised over $100 million in venture capital for different things he's been a part of.
Yeah.
He's a technology guy. He held a patent on live streaming and he sold it to Cisco Communications back in the day, you know?
Man,
and it's like
that little company?
I know, right? So, but it's like, so the breadth of knowledge that we bring to the table, like me as the down and dirty hustler, like make it happen no matter what it freaking takes, you know, and him as like he's dealt with just bigger things, you know?
Oh yeah, well yeah, and if you've gone through that, you have that bigger perspective and that bigger, you can see further down the road.
Oh yeah, dude.
Right, and when you can bring that,
dude, my life has like flipped upside down even, and I've always surrounded myself with bigger thinkers. But when you've got somebody that's on your same team and Lure, right, and you're like working together to grow this thing, like strategies, right? So, I mean, from the onset, because we can't serve our customers really if we don't know everything about. They can come to us and be like, "Hey, I need a video," or "Hey, I need a website," but 9 times out of 10 they're wrong, right? Or they may need that, but some variant of that, or a combination of other things with that, right? I remember the first time we went in and sold one, and my business partner was like, and we pitched, we laid it all up, and it was very loose. I mean, we had no clue really. I mean, at this time, he's like, "How much is this going to cost?" The client asked, right? And he sits there, and I'm like in my head going, "Oh shit, I don't know, man." You know, and he goes, $5,000. In my mind, $5,000 for one single product, you know, which I had. Yeah, I was like, "Whoa, dude, we're like freaking rich, man." You know, like in that, you know, not really rich, but like I was just like, dude, this is gonna change the game, bro. You know, and that was a year ago, and dude, we're now, you know, I'm not trying to like say, "Hey, Lure Studios is awesome," but our playbooks now are going for $25,000.
Awesome.
And that's an entry point to Lure Studios.
Beautiful.
you know? So it goes from, and that's why we're doubling, because I've been doubling the cost of stuff. But I mean, we've had the demand, you know? So it goes
that's
to,
great.
yeah. So, I mean, but what that does, we take a deep dive into, and you wanted to do this show on branding, right?
Yeah,
on personal branding. And really, dude, like, just plain and simple, branding is nothing more than your reputation. But you can't build a reputation, and it really comes down to building relationships and then doing what you say you'll do while keeping a mindset on the future, right? And continuing to do that. So if you don't know who your customer is, and this is why our strategies are like, it is the component to what we do that sets the tone for everything, you know? And really, we've, because you can in a situation like this, and this comes back down to not being broke and being able to change the world a little bit more, you know, is we can be a little bit more picky about the customers that we work with. Yeah. And we're working on some other entry level stuff because we want to help other people. It's just like, where does our time most get benefit?
Oh, absolutely.
You know? And so we're creating some courses and different things like that to kind of lay out for other people, you know, because anyway, but understanding that, man, we don't actually want to work with anyone who isn't all in on their own business. Oh, and so being able to actually say that we had a meeting yesterday with a dude who's worth like $20 million, you know, and each one of these guys is sitting at the table with, they've all lost at least $1 million at some point. And you know, and I'm sitting there like, dang, I still have a way to go. You know? When you can lose $1 million and still be here to tell a story. Right. You know, it's kinda,
so what is that? So what are some of that qualifications like to being all in? Like, how can you tell from a company and how do you lay that out?
If it's a partnership, you know, I've run into this scenario like where if the people that are there if they're still dilly-dallying around with other projects, or y'all haven't like really taken the time to like commit and become an LLC or whatever it needs to be, and everything else, dude, you can't be double-minded, you know, and I've had to learn that the hard way. I was a scattered dude for most of my life, you know, very unfocused, you know, a lack of direction, a lot of those things, because I wanted to do everything. When you're passionate, and I know you get this. Oh, yeah. And I know all of you probably get this as much as possible too, but when you're passionate, man, like everything is hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? You know, so everything's an opportunity to an opportunist, you know?
Right. Because, everything goes through that filter like, oh, I know how I could incorporate that into my business.
Which is genius. I mean, but you have to also be able to say, you know what, now's not the time. This is like, and that's just being mature, you know, in your and
have that discipline. And
and sometimes you're gonna look back at deals and be like, crap, I missed out on that, you know. Like when I meet a dude who's handing me 3 business cards because he's in this MLM and he's doing this and all that, I'm like, dude, never talk to me again. You know? No, actually, I love talking with people like that to be able to guide them, but, you know, because I've been there, man, you know. And you're just spinning your wheels, you know.
Well, that's the thing too. Like even if you have 10 of your own business cards, you have 10 different things going. If you're talking to somebody, they should be the recipient of one of those.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like you have something to offer, because number one, you shouldn't be just, you know.
And this is if you're an entrepreneur. If you're a business owner, dude, go have as many businesses that you want, because you got the money, you got the you know, the ability to be able to hire teams. Because that's really like when you, I don't know primarily what your audience is, and I apologize, but like, I'm on the entrepreneurial side of this from a business owner standpoint, more rolling into that, right? And trying to be the guy who's kind of not having to be there every time, you know, when something's needed.
Yeah, and my audience runs the gamut of that, of jumping in, entrepreneurial, and then some established, like, hey, we're running large corporations here and stuff too. So,
well, for the entrepreneurs out there, guys, your main goal is 1, get focused, stop trying to be everything. 2, learn how to build teams. And that's something I'm having to learn right now. And it is hard. And it's going to crunch you, man. I mean, it just is, you know, and it seems like you're failing at every turn a lot of times, and all these things. But in the end, man, I mean, like, we grow when we don't know we're growing a lot of times, but you got to put yourself in there, you know, in the game. And you'll look back a year or 2 from now and be like, dude, that was like a massive shift in my thinking and my growth and in our ability to like. Now I'm moving more to the forefront, even within Lure, of doing more stuff like this, being on shows and like focusing primarily on the podcast that we have. You know, we have Market Like a Pro, the podcast, and doing things like creating these other courses and things like that. So I'm more the face of the company and focusing on my strengths, right? I love to talk about business and I love like bringing people in and I'm relational, right?
Oh yeah. And that's massive because there's so many people out there trying to start and run businesses who, even if they have a team, man, they just want to sit in their office and hope that somebody finds them on the internet, you know? And if you have that superpower of going out and building those relationships, it's massive.
Well, that comes with understanding, one, in your hiring, we did this thing called the culture index. And I know we're all over the map on this, and I apologize.
Oh, I love it, though.
Bring me back if you need to. But like, the culture index, this thing, and if y'all ever want his information, this guy, and it's really cool. It's not cheap, but basically it's personality profiling, but not in a way of like what is that thing?
Myers-Briggs or...
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yep.
This is actually specifically designed to help you build your company out. And these guys work with you to do that. So when they understand your strengths, now they're coming alongside you and like, okay, you need to hire this person. That's your weak link right now. And this person fits the personality of it. Obviously do some background checks and stuff, but like they are exactly what you're missing right now. Chris came on board as a project manager directly as a response to that. And I've known Chris for years, you know, like our project manager at our deal. And he fills in the gaps to what we need, you know, and there's some other stuff we need, but he was the biggest, or that position, right, was the biggest thing we needed to get done. So, and dude, I'm stoked, you know, just about what we have now, because my ability to be out on the forefront and bringing in deals and leading the way and trying to taking Lure into the future and all this kind of stuff is a direct result of my ability to rely on this team and know that, hey, we're going to be able to get stuff done for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was the hardest, dude, for years. When I started Lure, it was almost 5 years ago, you know, and now we're much bigger, and my business partner, we're, you know, killing it together. But like, it was all me, dude. And I had the hardest time in the world, like letting go or even being able to use other people. You know, part of that was because I just didn't know how, and I wasn't forcing myself to do it. I tried a few times, and it was just always such a frustrating thing for me.
Right, because there is so much work that goes into
delegating.
The first, you got
to be clear on what you're doing anyway, right?
Right.
So part of that's just, you know, you might have to do it yourself until you build systems and understand what's needed, you know, and have a good, clear comprehension of what's actually happening, you know.
Yeah, and it sounds like too, you're taking your own medicine, right?
Oh,
Same
dude,
thing that you're prescribing for your clients on this branding side of things. You're jumping in there, like you said, starting a podcast, jumping in a video.
Because now we're starting to have the ability to, like, again, when it was all me, like, dude, you can't do that stuff. And that's necessary stuff nowadays. Oh, like, this isn't like a podcast, you're super special because you have a podcast, right? This is, if you're not doing that, you're kind of falling behind, because there's some, like, really big brands happening out of this stuff right now, you know? And the opportunity is just phenomenal.
Yeah, we're at an amazing time, honestly. And I'm trying, you know, I'm screaming from the rafters, right? To everybody, because we're in this time that, I mean, like, to you and I, we're in that world a little bit of podcasts and things like that. And so just looking around, it's like, okay, everybody's got a YouTube channel, everybody's got a podcast, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as you zoom out just a little bit,
not everybody has it.
We're still at like
minority,
at like 8 to 10% listenership of podcasts. Much less anybody doing them. So the beauty is, in all these industries, like, you know, the company that builds these fences, they could own their industry in that whole segment, from having a show, having a podcast, and
anything that isn't directly related to, like, these entrepreneurship programs. There's a lot of those because people want to talk about them. But, you know, that doesn't matter though. How many restaurants do you pass by on the way to pick me up, dude, or how many we've driven by on this time, and people, they're still in business, you know? And the thing is like, your personality is what's going to differentiate that thing, and giving people a reason to listen to your show and not just saying the same crap everybody else is, right?
Right. And we are all over the place. Enjoy. You get a lot of topics in one show this time. But it really is too. The other part of that is your goal for that show. Whether it's iTunes, whether it's YouTube.
You need, on your show, you need to understand that for sure.
It is, but that's the other thing.
One show of going all over the map like we're doing, that's fine. But like if your program itself is all over the map,
right?
Like, nobody's gonna listen to you.
Today we're talking farming. What? You know, right? But the other part of that is the fact that you know, a lot of people jump into a show just because, like, I just want to have a successful show and people give me advertising, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's a 3-year down the road dream of a whole lot of hard work.
Audience. If you don't have an audience, you ain't getting anything anyway.
Instantly, if your goal is, you know what, I want to meet more people in my industry and get in front of more people tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, that's something you can pull off in a month.
Totally,
and you can own that space.
And there is still a mystique when you walk into a room. It's like, yeah, I'm Jason Croft and I'm host of the Jason Croft Show. Oh, really? Tell me more. You know, like, it's just, people are just drawn to that for some reason. You know,
it's a human level. I mean, I don't know back in Neanderthal days if they had celebrities, but at some point in our head for, however many years now, we've been conditioned with that person's on camera, they're a celebrity, and we are going to react differently. However
totally, man.
long we do or however much is all of big varying degrees, but it happens. It happens to me. I just watched some guy's video, the other day, like just a series of his stuff, kind of know who he was. And then I finally met, and I couldn't quit, like, oh man, it's that guy. It's like, oh yeah, hey, and it's just some dude here in Dallas, and it just happens. And so it's an amazing tool to be able to use. And then again, what you and I are getting at too is that trickles all the way down in all these industries where nobody's thinking about it right now because it's not normal or natural to throw a camera in your car and start driving around and talking to people. But it's also simple enough to do, and you put some effort behind it, and
it really isn't that hard. Yeah, if you just do a little bit of research, and there's tons of stuff all online that you can go look at. John Lee Dumas, we were talking about him earlier a little bit. He has that Entrepreneur on Fire show, but he has all kinds of free training for podcasts and stuff like that.
Yep, for sure.
That's how I learned, actually, was through that stuff. And so... and a few other things since then, and then just through personal experience. But man, you got to start somewhere too. Like, part of this is, like in the mindset, back to that, there's a huge, I would say almost 90% of this is you believing that you are the type of person that people would want to listen to. And it's not even that you're not, it's you believing it. So getting your head into the space of you deserve to be listened to, not like some, give me this snowflake, but like more of a, dude, your story is interesting. Yeah. So if you learn how to tell it in a way that people get that.
And even if, and I agree with that, but I also say, like, you can even get there. Like, I jumped in.
I did too. On my first episode.
Well,
I was nervous. So like,
not only that, but for me, I never approached it from, you know what? I should be on camera. I approached it as I have no business being on camera, but.
You got to learn somewhere, right?
But you got to learn, and I want to tell these other people's stories. I want to get people in on the show and shine a spotlight on them and meet more people, and this is my vehicle to do it.
Yeah.
And then it came. And then, 80 episodes later, then it's like, all right, I kind of know what I'm doing here. This is good. We can kind of,
Well, and then also if you look at it back to the weaponizing yourself, dude, this is a tool, right? This is just like you would learn how to use an AR-15 or a sword or anything else. Like, when you're doing this, you got to go practice, and you got to have an outlet for that, right? And to be able to do this, like, you know who Garrett White is?
Yeah.
So Garrett White, he's got the Wake Up Warrior thing. We actually my business partner and I went down to that in California last month, and I'm going back this month. So
we need to ask you about that.
It was super cool. We can talk about that more. But that dude's life, like, he grew up a lot like I did, where he was broke. Their family wasn't well off necessarily, and a lot of those types of things. But he kind of went through this whole phase of trying to grow as a person, right? And just kind of going out there, and he did. But what's interesting is, like, that dude was all over the map. I mean, he was all kinds of different things personality-wise that I had no clue. Like, you just kind of come out and you see his videos on YouTube or whatever, and you think, like, this guy, like, the persona that he's putting out there is one thing, but you go back and you look at some of his older videos, and he's actually kind of a dorky dude, I mean, in some ways, and now he's like this alpha masculine dude, it's like, leading an army for real. I mean, like, every time I see his stuff, it's like Fight Club, like real Fight Club, but not like you're in the basement beating each other's head off,
Right.
But, yeah.
Or on a beach beating each other's head off.
I mean, you go out there, I mean, it's like, men are following this guy. And it's awesome. Absolutely. And I love it. He's giving direction to people, to men and like leading them up in their families. And back to the branding thing is, dude, that was what he wanted people to do. His reputation is his brand.
Yeah.
You know, and I think so, all too often in most people's mind that like their idea of a brand is like having the great logo and having all and that's a minor part of this whole thing. Yeah. It's like your brand is what do people say about you when you're not in the room, you know?
Yeah. And so how do you, in digging back into that, sorry to interrupt you, but how do you dig in there and sort of build that out for a company, for, you know, small or large? Where do you start with that?
Well, for us, a lot of times we're working with people who already have some degree of that in place. Like, I mean, they've been doing business. We've got some startups that we've done. I mean, we've actually got a really cool one, you know, I can't talk about it much right now, but like, that's a full-on startup phase, you know, cool. But the guys behind it, you know, and you're kind of, we dig into the why, first of all, you know, I mean, and that's extremely overused terminology a lot of times now from Simon Sinek and all that, but it's so important to understand that, you know, and really, actually, I will break it down for you. The strategy side, and that's why I find this so important when we're dealing with clients and why they can't work with us unless they do this in the first place, is if you don't know, first of all, why you're doing what you're doing, because that's important for us to know that, hey, we're actually supporting this company that's going to be changing the world, lives. You know, their motive is much greater than selling a cog, right? And they're providing jobs and they're doing all that. But they know their audience. Like, if most people don't, they haven't taken the time to do this, but we dive in and we go, okay, who do you want to work with? Like, what's a dream client for you? You know? And then when you understand that, and we have a series of things that we go through to really dive into that, but when you understand that, and I mean all of your messaging and your energy goes to appeasing that person. Everybody else can be damned pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
you'll get some from here, you'll get some of this and stuff, but when you speak to one single person, it's huge.
And so now, so if I'm into, like, I've used the militaristic kind of terms a little bit in this thing, you know, I love being around people like that, you know, that think like warriors, you know, and they're kind of in that realm. And so when I get around them, like, it's just boom, you know, there's this instant connection, you know? That's not by accident, right? You know, I mean, it's because I know, like, the type of person I am, and I know how to use the phrases, and I know what those people tend to look like, what they dress like, how they carry themselves. You know, they might have a beard, usually, you know, mostly men, but there's women like that, you know? So like those are the people I resonate with and I want to change the world with a lot of times, you know, if they're super mousy and all that, I'm probably not the dude they're going to want to spend a lot of time with. Cause I am not, you know, a silent, you know, mousy person, you know?
So digging in more, so in their strategy, find out their why, who do they want to work with? Who's their ideal, that target, obviously that
well, you got to understand your goals, right? So you got to have goals, even if they're just year long, you know? And I know, like, this is always one of those things that's up for debate. But when you're setting your goals, you know, I used to think you had to have like your 10 years mapped out, you know? And it's more of a hindrance and a roadblock for people like me to think like that, you know? I'm more apt to set, and I've realized this only recently, but to set like 18-month goals and only that. Don't go beyond that, you know? You can have kind of a vision for what that might look like a little bit, but don't waste your time because it's going to change so much anyway.
Absolutely.
But the 18-month, like, hard goal, like, I will do whatever it takes to get that goal in 18 months. You know, for me, that's to hit $100,000 a month in my own personal revenue coming in at that point in time, which is unfathomable at the point that I made that goal, you know, which was only a couple months ago. But, like, it was that people are doing it all over the place, dude. And frankly, now, as I'm diving into it, I'm realizing, like, dude, did I undercut myself? You know?
That's awesome.
All because I set that goal in the first place. You know what I'm saying? So if I can get to that, then I know I can get to something else because it's just a matter of changing some tweaks, you know?
Right. Exactly. It's math.
And you can't even understand that mindset actually until you get there. And then, like, you may be having people telling you everything that it takes to hit $500,000 a month all around you, but you're not in a place to even understand that. It's like trying to tell your dog about the Constitution, right? Like, it's not, it's like, okay, this dude's moving his mouth and I have no clue what's going on right now. You know? So, I mean, dude, life is, and when you realize that life is step by step by step and it's a journey, you know? You're never going to arrive ever. And if you do, you've already missed the point, you know?
So there are goals in there. So that's another piece of that.
Yeah.
Of when you sit down and work with a brand. What else? What's that other piece of that strategy that before you sort of like
so
then you jump in?
Once you've got those things done, then you got to understand like where have you been spending money on getting, because you don't really have a business if you don't have traffic coming in. You know, I know like people love to say, oh, I get all these referrals and I get all that. And I'm like, well, that's great. But, you know, like, what if that dries up? You're dead. Right. If you don't have a way to actually get systematic and understand exactly how to drive traffic and be a rainmaker, like, you are not a business. You're a hobbyist, you know?
Absolutely.
And so getting into, you know, and that was one of the things I had to realize for Lure even in the day is like, we're a marketing company and we're spending, you know, it was all referral based. And there's a side of that we do now advertise, but on specific channels because we're looking for a specific avatar, right? So we're going after people that have the ability to spend $25,000 on a playbook or whatever. So
but that's the only time it makes sense is when you've first gone through, identified who that person is, what your goals are to work with that kind of person, and then you can come in and say like, okay, how am I going to go get them and how am I going to get them to me?
Well, yeah, and then, dude, when I started Lure, though, I was like, I'll go wash your car, shine your shoes. I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to make some money. So, yeah, it's all a growth process, man. You know, you just got to get into it. And don't be so hard on yourself to think that you got to have it all figured out. Because I've, you know, in the marketing realm, that is extremely frustrating right now. Because there's these guys that I know that come from agencies and they go start their companies. And within a year or two, they're already multi-million-dollar companies, and I'm like, dude, what is wrong with me? Like, why, you know, like, why, what am I missing? You know, like, but I didn't come from an agency. I've literally taught myself everything, you know?
Yeah.
And back to the strategy. Can I say something real quick? Because I do want to say this. Like, part of that, too, is like when I got to the point where I could pay for knowledge, I did. And that has been one of the single most aspects of growth for me personally and within the business and everything else that I've experienced.
That's awesome. That's huge. So courses, masterminds, meeting,
and just one. I think, you know, everybody always talks about, well, you put your own skin in the game, and that's true, but it's so much more than that. Like there's some con artists out there, but like when you start getting around the people for real and going to events and meeting other people in your industry who are doing, like, it breaks paradigms for you.
Yeah.
One,
it's huge.
Yeah. You're not the only guy. You're not the only guy in the world trying to do this thing, right? Now you realize, like, dude, actually there's a lot of people that are way above me. And so why wouldn't I be able to do this? You know?
Right.
It becomes like a no-brainer.
And when you get around the right ones, it goes from, and it's a little bit of a weird place to get, but mentally, if you can get yourself to be uncomfortable with, man, I don't know how these people are doing it. I am going to go into this room and I'm going to feel like I have no idea what I'm doing in my entire life. But if you go in that with that, being okay with that and knowing I'm going to come out the other side, because if it's in those rooms, because you're already going to have that feeling scrolling around the internet. You're gonna have that anyway, going like, oh, all these people.
Yeah, dude, where do I even begin?
Right.
Yeah.
But if you can get to those events, if you can get to those masterminds and get around those people want to help.
Yeah, they do. And you realize, like, dude, there's a lot of people like me. You know, like, I mean, that was one of the struggles for me as a marketer, was you start going to, especially in video, is there tends to be a lot of hipsters in that environment. And I don't meld with hipsters, bro. You know, like, I'm just not that guy, you know? And I was like, because I'm a pretty conservative dude, I'm way out there. I think about stuff all the time. I'm very futuristic thinking. I'm always very visual, but like, and I love taking my mind off of the deep end. I always kind of consider, like, in my mind, the way I imagine myself is I go running and I jump off of a cliff and just mental cliff dive, dude. And like, there is no bottom, right? And just let it land where it will, on stuff. But it's like, I love doing that with people, and you just don't get that much, you know? So being able to have conversations with people that will continue to take you down this rabbit hole, you know? And like, dude, and some of your greatest visions would come out of that. But anyway, so that actually is a part of the strategy, though, you know? It's like, know your people, you know? I mean, like, if you don't know them, then you can't talk to them in that way. And don't try to be all things to all people. You're always going to feel like, you see, like, these smaller businesses, and they're like, I want to be the cheapest. You know, it's like, that is the dumbest thing. And sorry if that offends you. I don't care. Like, trying to be the cheapest guy is absolutely insanity. Insane.
It's just, it's a race you can't win.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to compete with Walmart and Amazon and all of these places that are just making it way too easy to not do business with you and take a risk at that, right? So if you're Joe Schmo's Lawn Care and you're charging less than what everybody else is because you hope to get their business, right? Now, like, dude, is this guy going to like tear up my yard and never come back? Or is he going to just be doing, like, this is how I think.
Right.
You know? I don't want the cheapest dude, you know?
Right.
I want to pay people what they're worth, you know?
Absolutely.
In order to get a job done. And as a business owner, like, I don't know if that's hurt or helped me, you know? Because I don't mind paying more for a sub because I want to go to my client and be like, yeah, we're about double what you're going to pay anywhere else, but dude, you're going to have like the best. I mean, like, we're going all in, you know?
But when you can stand there with certainty and say that,
yeah,
we're going to deliver this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Sometimes that certainty costs money. And then on both sides. Right?
Totally, dude.
You know?
I mean, it goes back, and we were talking about this earlier, how video became this commodity.
Yeah.
It really didn't. It did for people that suck at video.
Right.
Right? And that's hard for people new starting, which will actually help thin out the market a little bit, you know, which needs to happen. But at the same time, like, dude, if you're committed to excellence in what you do and you actually have a clear path of how this will help them grow their company, that is such a rarity in any business, really, of people knowing how it really benefits the client long term.
Yeah.
That, dude, you'll be freaking busier than you ever want to be, you know?
Yeah.
And then it comes down to your business acumen and how you can grow and scale yourself. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I want to make sure we wrap up here with
the strategy,
lure and kind of what's next and everything for you. So
yeah, man. Well, we've been continually growing. We're actually going after brands now that I know can put us on the map. You know, I mean, that's where my head's at.
Cool.
Is going after like customer. You know, we've got some really cool stuff going on with an app company in the music space that could end up being a huge deal.
Nice.
A guy who's an inventor. I'm gonna head down to Austin to meet with this guy again. We've already met, but like, I'm excited about these deals that we've got. You know, because now when you start getting into that space, right, you start being able to work with people that you absolutely love, and that you're like, man, this is like a dream come true, right?
Cool.
Like, to be able to do this kind of thing and getting into that realm, especially after 5 years of nearly losing your home a billion times. Right. And, I mean, everything else that goes with it, but it was like, dude, it starts to be like, oh my God, it was so worth it and more, you know?
Oh, it's great.
So for us, like, that type of thing, I think this for Lure, where we're growing is one, focusing on that from a growth perspective, but then also creating like these courses and stuff to help other entrepreneurs get to that next level, you know, and even just, you know, some simple strategy stuff. Like, we're looking at some ways to be able to bring that to a more affordable price point, you know, so that it doesn't always have to be that, because in the end, like, I love entrepreneurs. I love them because I am one of them and I know how to speak their language, and you do too, right? I mean, this country would not even be close to being as awesome as it is or anything, you know, and I know that's debated by a lot of people, but dude, it's a great country, and we have the ability to go out there and become anything that we want to become still to this day. Yep. The biggest thing that stands in our way is the way we think, you know, so, and that's one of the things I think for Lure too, is we're actually applying a lot of this stuff that we're learning through Warrior, and there's a great book called Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh, yeah.
That book is world changing. I mean, it was about how we think, how we see the world, how we see ourselves, all those type of things, and it's got application stuff in it. It was written in 1960 by a guy named Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon.
Oh, that's right.
You know, and he was, I think, we talked about this a little bit, but that book will by far, it has the capacity. I don't know why it's not more widely recognized, frankly, but so I want people to talk about our employees the way that like Disney's employees have been talked about. You know? Yeah. And like, where people come and they're like, man, you used to work at Lure Studios? Because here's the thing is, like, as a business owner, there's always that fear of like, man, I'm going to equip this person and they're going to leave, you know? And I finally got to this point where I was like, dude, that goes against everything you say you stand for in my own mind, right? Right. And if it truly is to make everything better, then do it, you know? Yeah. And let the cards fall where they will, because there's two ways that somebody's going to walk out of an experience with Lure Studios. They're either worse off or better off. You know, and I'm not going to let somebody walk out of there worse off, you know? Yeah.
And my favorite quote with that is always, you know, you can either train somebody. Would you rather have somebody trained and leave, or untrained and stay?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And that really is it, man. I mean, at the end of it all, you know, everything we do should be about creating, you know, everyone, man. I mean, really, like, I know most people say, oh, I'm not creative. I'm like, yeah, you are. I mean, like, it's in there. So you're creating something. So, dude, like, pour into it and don't settle for anything less than what it's capable of being, you know. I want to see a world where everybody is existing in the ability that God has given them. I mean, at capacity. Can you imagine even just our city looking like that?
Oh, my goodness.
Where nobody's fearful. We're all executing at the highest level in our thing, you know, that the thing that we were born to do.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what would that even look like? I desire to see that world, man.
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
So, real quick, I know we're going to have to get off here, but want to let everybody know we got something special for you. If you go to lurestudios.com/Jason Croft Show, we've got an awesome kind of walkthrough survey deal that'll find out where you're at in regards to where you understanding your strategy and all that.
Oh,
so,
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be, I know we didn't get to go as much into that more, but that'll help a lot, you know. And then we'll actually be creating some other courses and stuff like that to help in that regard. So I think that'll be super beneficial for you guys. So
cool. So that'll kind of walk them through that strategy that you and I went going through, and then even more.
Yeah, questions they need to be asking themselves. So we'll do a quick survey to find out where they're at, and then we'll have like a little white paper for them to take away and like what they need to work on.
Oh, awesome.
At the end of that, depending on how they answer that survey.
Yeah.
So it'll be super helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And you can check out Market Like a Pro on iTunes and Stitcher. It's a marketing radio show. We'll have to get you on next time, dude. So,
heck yeah. Absolutely. This is a blast, man. Thank you so much.
Blast, dude. Thank you, man. Cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Cool. Now, I hope you loved that episode with Cory as much as I did. If you can't tell, we have a blast when we get together and talk. So it's one of those that we just ride that wave, right? We hit all sorts of different topics and have a blast doing it. And I hope you got a lot out of it. I think you did, you know, from as much value as Cory brought to this episode. I think you had to have, you know. So that's why, you know, there's no editing of these things or try to, you know, constrain it to a certain topic, because, you know, all of this was just fantastic, wonderful stuff. And here's something that's just so critical. Certainly something we touched on in the interview, Cory and I. But it's something I just scream from the rafters all the time. You, watcher, viewer, listener, you need a show like this as well. Some version of this. Have your own platform. And it is so much more accomplishable, is that a word? Than you probably think, than most people think. And it's something that moves the needle on your brand building, on your network of folks, and your reach within your industry. It's huge. It's just massive. So if you want help doing that, go on over to croftmediaco.com and see what it's like to work with me. You know, we'll dig in, we'll get a structure down for you, and we'll get you a platform that's really a done-for-you service so that you can show up for your prospects, for existing clients, and for your entire industry, and do so in a way that you're the authority, all along the way shining a spotlight on other folks as well. So make sure you do. Hit me up over there at croftmediaco.com. And if you like episodes like this, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening on iTunes, certainly subscribe there as well. Whatever your favorite podcasting platform is and you're listening on right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review, if you will, on iTunes. It helps us get found for sure. And we'll see you on the next one.
It's Saturday night. It was Saturday night and I'm feeling kinda silly. Winter coat on cause the air was chilly, but I'ma make my way out to the record spot. Gotta find some new breaks for the beats to rock. I gotta come with the flavor like some lifesavers. On now and later, start the beat maker. If I'm a player, it's like your tape deck. And if you miss the gig, then take a rain check. Stacks of wax piled high to the ceiling, need a U-Haul truck if I would think about stealing. But it's not my steed, so I commence with the digging, no kidding. Something that'll keep the beats hitting what I'm getting. So much to choose from, bro.